On your radical, all hands on deck, all hands on deck. This is today. This is important, historic freaking. So they're saying, now, I'll dive into this. I'll dive into the spent fuel pools in Texas. You know, the greatest crime in human history, the cover-up of the Fukushima nuclear disaster. So, stay with me. Let's come out here so I can get this mask off and we can talk. So, we'll talk about the spent fuel pools at Comanche and STP in Texas. That's where all the nuclear energy was going, or excuse me, all the energy was going, because they have to keep the spent fuel pools cool. So, stay with me. I wrote papers here at this university in the 90s on, I did some really serious work on spent fuel pools here at the Water School of Nuclearism on how big of a quake they could handle. Spent fuel pools. The Mach 1, Mach 2 were built by Utah Construction here. So, this is University of General. This is Florida. This is GE. This is who built the reactors at Fukushima, Japan. They cheated, by the way. Mach 1, Mach 2, Tic-Tac, Diablo Canyon clock. Speaking of Weaver State football opens, I think, at Cal Poly. The radio, let's see if we can. Let's do this. So, this is important. No rest for the weary. Every time I think I'm going to get a break, I don't get a... And I have no funding. I mean, because everybody's butthurt because they were... Trumpettes versus Obamacans were the same pro-nuclear rats. So stay with me. So the earthquake in Japan, now earthquake scales work on a dynamic. They're not just same math. You got to use a slide rule on your math. So this earthquake I come up with, it was an 8.3 or 4 on the Richter scale. So my work, and you have to take the age of the pool, you have to take all this work, it's very dynamic. I came up with, in the 90s, the Blanch scale, which I said, Fukushima Daiichi, which I had ranked as my number 2, or number 3 most dangerous reactor in the world. I always had San Onofre 1, Diablo Canyon 2, that one 3rd, Ring of Fire. So, I came up that it could only handle about a 7.6, 7.7 at Daiichi, fucking earthquake, the spent fuel pools. They will crack open. Now, Sam, who's my good friend, he's in a lot of videos in New York, Indian Point, he's the diver. They go in gear and they weld the spent fuel pools underwater welders. He's the guy. He said when we used to go to Daiichi, this is a long time, he's been in a lot of my videos in New York, at Indian Point, all over. He's the one that told me those spent fuel pools have been leaking in Indian Point into Hudson for decades. So anyway, he said when they went to Japan, they'd go to Japan all through the 80s and 90s. Well, you know, they'd have to pay the mob. They'd send lists, you know, loads of cash this big, cases of Cutty Sark whiskey, this whole big list, they'd have to come in. The mob runs the show on the cleanup. So the spent fuel pools, they blew to smithereens when the shake happened on the 9 So what spent fuel pools are left at Fukushima, Japan, the ones they're talking about now, Unit 4 blew to hell. They're saying Unit 1 and 3. Now remember, Unit 3 was full of MOX fuel, the worst of the worst, which we made illegal in the United States. So what did the United States do? They moved it over there, who runs this whole dog and pony show. Now, since what MOX fuel has been at Diani and Daiichi, they claim, well, you can look it up, it came back through Savannah River, the MOX fuel fairy tale at Savannah, fucking South Carolina, you know, the $29 million root job. The United States Department of Justice goes in and investigates, says they build this for 78% complete, it's 28% complete. They've stole $20 million, you know. Jeff Bezos, nuclear physicist, Washington Post even put an article, nobody cares. You know, it was right there. I think it had 3 comments. One, any Washington Post political theater, Ted Cruz can get $10 million. Now in Texas, the spent fuel pools, they have their own private grid, right? Rick Perry, Secretary of the... I like how Rick Perry says he hates the feds, he hates the feds. Wasn't he the Secretary of the Fed? Nuclear energy, bring all the nuclear waste to... That's where it's going. It's going to Texas. Thank you, Rick Perry. Fucking... Unbelievable, this dynamic. So when this third world country in Texas is having their nightmare, the spent fuel pools have to be cooled, right? How much energy? Oh, it takes a giant amount of energy. They're stacked on pools. So what pools they're talking about now at Daiichi, AP's reporting, that are the pools that they've been reconstructing to try to salvage what little bit of spent fuel pool they picked up off the ground and got back in. Because the spent fuel pools blew to smithereens on March 11th. You're still waiting for the main event. The nuclear energy dynamic, we had this conversation, me and my grandson, yesterday, because his teacher told him, and he's in the 4th grade, says, well, sometimes, and my grandson says, no, nuclear energy is always bad. And I says, you tell him tomorrow that Kevin Blanch said this. The debate on nuclear energy ended March 11th, 2011, 10 years ago. Tick-tock. The greatest crime in human history is this cover-up. The spent fuel pools, and that goes for the United States. We have tick-tock. We've closed down how many reactors in the United States, but the spent fuel pool's on site. Now, we've got out of the San Onofre. That's my work. That's our work. That's the most historic freaking grassroots activist work in history. It's out of the spent fuel. It's done. Remember, it's going to take 30, 40, 50, 60 years. It's already done. I mean, with the fake shutdown, they roll into freaking Chuck and Nina, public watchdogs, which was a sham to block that canister. That was a sham, by the way. I watched the footage. I was the very first question up. By the way, that hearing was in Austin. I mean, why is Austin sending up a hearing? Remember, Daryl Isis cried, oh, they won't come, the consent-based hearings. They came. That's me going out of that's consent-based hearings. By the way, just so you know, Rick Perry says you in Texas have consented to and in Idaho, and they've retested it. They've restarted nuclear testing. They're already doing it. In Nevada, they already restarted open air tests. They already did it. You consented. And I says, yeah, like a passed out co-ed behind a fucking dumpster. You know that story about the judge's son? So, the spent fuel shake. So the other one is at Diani. Diani's got spent fuel. We're down to in the 60s on nuclear reactors in the United States, but all the spent fuel. The only one we've got it out since is San Onofre. It's done. I mean, it's the greatest accomplishment in activist history because it's the most dangerous nuclear reactor in the world on the Ring of Fire. And the spent fuel is out of the pools. It's in those canisters on that shock absorber. It's thousands of times better than in spent fuel pools. So now they're reporting that the spent fuel pool's cracked, which I've already reported that, but they've got me shadow banned, and you're so butthurt because you're left, right. Oh, I'm a Trumper. I'm anti-nuclear. When Trump and Obama are identical twins. Here you're in Texas freezing to death when the nuclear energy crime syndicate is sucking up all the energy to keep spent fuel pools cold. They have the grid blocked. Here in Utah, solar panels all over here, you can't sell it back into the grid. They won't let you. And I lobby. And I do all this lobbying for free. I fight the lobbyists. Teams of attorneys against Kevin Blanch. They'll tell you, well, it's not fair to the coal and the nuclear industry. It's not fair to be able to sell the solar back in. It was a Mormon legislator that got it overturned in Nevada. California's producing 200% more solar a day than they can use. They have it blocked from the grid. Texas will tell you we blocked it. We won't. Rick Perry makes a statement yesterday. We don't care if this happens for weeks, over and over and over and over. We don't care as long as we keep the feds. I thought he was a Fed. Wasn't he the United States Department of Energy? Isn't that the Fed? Wasn't he the Secretary of Energy? Oh my God, up is down. I mean, this is a freak show. Ted freaking Cruz flies to, oh my God. Spent fuel pools cracked, which Kevin Blanch, I'm telling you, I've been on this every day since the day it happened, and I get no money, I get no nothing, I just do all the fucking work. It's an impossible freaking journey this has happened. While I'm full of cancer, I've got leukemia, I'm hooked, I'm anchored to that fucking hospital. The tide pool work, the salmon work, just the greatest crime. You're still waiting for the main event. Fukushima was the main event, 10 years ago. TikTok, Diablo Canyon clock, Well, I'm trying. Look what my accomplishment at San Onofre. Go ask Kamala Harris, you don't believe me. It's just so historic. Kick that out. These spent fuel pools, we have 42 of them here in the United States. They're the exact same design. This is the university that built them. They cheated. It's irony. I went to the Wattis school. The Wattises built it, floor thing. I graduated from the #1 school business in the country. I taught there. The Wattis School of Business, which is now, don't go see the dog, they're last. The Wattis School of, I grew up here. Right in the belly of the beast of these freaking nuclear oligarchs. They'll do anything for money. Anything. That's the problem in this country. It's all political theater. These spent fuel pools fucking have blown to fucking smithereens. Look, it was supposed to be in Yucca Mountain by Lyle in the 1970s. By law, we're paying a fine back to these reactors, and these reactors are not public utilities. They're owned by people like Rick Perry. They're owned by all kinds of private. Bill Gates owns them. I mean, he's on 60 Minutes. Anderson Cooper was in Fukushima, Japan. Remember him? These meltdowns, should we come home? He's telling this Adam Walsh, MIT. Telling him, huh? And then he flies home and he doesn't say a word, and he's interviewing Bill Gates on 60 Minutes. I mean, get Edward Snow job on there. It took 60 Minutes, freaking Blake Barrett and Leslie Stahl on 60 Minutes. It took them 3,000 days to tell you what Kevin Blanch told you in the first hour. These spent fuel pools are crack. Where is the spent fuel? It's in your bone marrow. Cancer rates have went psychotic in this country. Oh, the elites have a pill. Why didn't Rush Limbaugh take it? He was worth $2.7 billion. Why didn't, Bill Gates' partner, Paul Allen, owned the. Why didn't he take it? Worth $60 billion, dying of leukemia. I mean, on and on, and I can go on and on and on and on about the death. So spent fuel pools. You won't listen to me. Nobody will listen to me. I do all the lobbying. I do all the fucking dirty work. I do everything, for free. Thank you, everybody, who supported the historic work. I ain't gonna quit you. I ain't gonna quit. Go ahead. All I ever wanted was my fucking peace of mind. So stay tuned.